Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Intro to Meditation Finding Your Center session. So we have these sessions every Thursday, 7 to 8:30 p.m. and Sunday, 9:30 to 11 a.m. Today's topic is Moderation and the Five Gremlins, which will be hosted by Venerable Nicholas. For those of you who cannot make it to these sessions, but would like to have brief meditation sessions, we also have Peace Break for every Friday through Wednesday from 7 to 7:30 p.m. So before we begin meditation and the brief Dhamma lesson, we'd like everyone to just relax and stretch out a bit so that we can settle ourselves in to having the best hour and a half of our Sunday. Okay, I take it over. I hand the torch over to the yoga instructor.
Chair nearby for balance if needed. If you find that I'm talking faster than you are moving, please take your time and do fewer repetitions. Take a nice deep inhale and exhale. Place the feet about hips width apart and grounded on the floor. Lift the toes and spread them nice and wide and feel the navel pull gently in towards the spine. Push the toes into the floor and lean forward just a little bit. Feel the muscles that keep you steady. Lean back just a little bit and feel the toes come up. Feel the muscles that keep you steady in this position. Now push all four corners of the feet into the floor. Notice the steadiness of mountain pose. Notice how the steadiness of mountain pose feels. On the next inhale, roll the shoulders towards the ears, back and down so the shoulders are slightly open. Let the palms rest open to the side. Inhale and let the arms rise with the palms facing up. Exhale, bend at the elbows and allow the hands to come down the center line. Sink into the knees just a little. Repeat this again. Inhale, lift the arms with the palms facing up. Allow the hands and face to be relaxed. Continue with this movement at your own pace. Breathe as you move and try to coordinate the breath with the movement. On the next breath, lift the arms back over the head. Fingertips point in, palms face up. Imagine that you have candles in the palms of your hands and you do not want to spill them. Turn the fingertips so they face behind you. The palms remain up. Turn the fingertips to the side and then to the front like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again, towards one another, and then forwards like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again. Let's do this rotation one more time. After the second rotation, allow the hands to cascade down by the side and let them rest. Pause for one slow inhale and exhale. One more breath. Inhale, exhale. This next exercise is excellent for strengthening the spine and gently stretching the muscles of the back, front, and sides. Attempt to make the movement easeful and gentle. We will do these movements with various arm positions. The first arm position is the easiest. Please be sure to stay with the one that feels best for your body. We will demonstrate them all. Take the right hand to the waist and then the left. Roll the shoulders open. And on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale to the center. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale back to the center. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. And on the next inhale, gently pull the navel towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin and feel a sense of lengthening through the front of the body. On the next exhale, begin to fold gently forward. It does not have to be all the way. Bend the knees slightly. Inhale and rise back to a standing position. Open the left arm to the side. Keep the elbow bent. Leave the right hand on the waist. Inhale. Exhale, lean slightly to the right, and then return back to the center. Bring the left hand down to the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. Exhale and lengthen to the left. Return to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Gently pull the navel in towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward halfway. Inhale back to standing. Open the left arm again. Inhale, and on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale and return back to the center. Place the left hand on the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale and return back to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Lengthen through the front of the body. Slightly pull the shoulder blades together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward. Knees slightly bent. Inhale and return to standing in mountain pose. Pause for a moment. Inhale and exhale. For this warrior sequence, attempt to keep the movements gentle and relaxed. If you notice that you are struggling, move the feet closer together. Lower the arms or make the movements smaller. This pose is great for strengthening the legs, respiration, and opening the shoulders. Step the left foot forward just a few feet. The back foot points in at a 45-degree angle. The front knee bends and the hips face front if possible. Inhale, open the arms and bend at the elbows. On the exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards each other. Inhale, open the arms and push the heart softly forwards. Relax the shoulders. Exhale, bring the arms together. Inhale, open the arms to where you feel comfortable. Exhale, relax the arms inwards. Inhale, open and expand. Exhale, contract. Inhale, exhale. Bring the hands back down by the side, return to mountain pose. One breath here. Inhale, exhale. Step the right foot forward. Take a moment, there's no rush. Ground the back foot into the floor. Bend the front knee. When you are ready, open the arms. Inhale. Exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards one another. Inhale, open the arms. This is a relaxed opening in the chest. Exhale, bring the hands and arms towards one another. Inhale, repeat again, creating spaciousness with a full inhale. Exhale, contract and relax the arms slightly. 2 more times at your own pace. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Let the hands rest down by the side and return back to mountain pose. Pause here for a few breaths.
So while we wait for the video to begin, I would like to just take this moment to remind everybody that the Venerable Nicholas would very much like if you had any questions or comments to leave them either in the comments section on the Facebook Live video or the YouTube live streaming channel, and then he'll get back to you during his next session. Venerable Nicholas very much likes to hear feedback and would love if you had questions so that we can further stimulate the topics. So don't be shy. And now that we are all stretched up and limber, I hope you are almost ready to begin. So we ask everyone while we patiently wait for Venerable Nicholas to arrive to center your minds and open your ears. Okay. Have a good time.
Sunday mornings by Peace Point and alternating Thursday evenings by DIMC Information with myself, Prat Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from Dhammakaya International Meditation Center in Azusa, California. Today's session will be about an hour and a quarter long and will consist of a 25-minute talk, 20 minutes of meditation, 25 minutes conclusion, answers to viewer questions submitted in advance, and news updates. Last time you saw me, we looked at how to measure up our own potential in terms of 6 personal qualities, to know whether we are up to dealing with a problem or whether we would be better to remain patient about it. The topic for the Dhamma talk today will be moderation and the 5 gremlins, which, although it may sound like Snow White and the 7 dwarfs, is actually a look at the special nature of obstacles that seem to appear whenever we attempt spiritual transformation, while examining how to leverage the way we use and consume things to help us on our spiritual journey. Again, this session I would like to encourage you to send in any questions you have by posting them on the Peace Point Meditation YouTube page or Peace Point Meditation Facebook page, or by sending them to me personally so I can have a shot at answering them next time round. So let's start by looking at the subject of gremlins. Once we are already endowed with vision, that is, a view of self and possibilities in life amenable and realistic to spiritual transformation, the next step in spiritual transformation is to develop the commitment and integration of practice. If you go to sea, then you have to be prepared to weather high waves and storms. In the same way, even a clear vision of what you want to do in the way of spiritual transformation doesn't mean that you won't encounter obstacles when you get down to practice. You would expect that trying to do good deeds in life, the universe would somehow smile on you, but often it seems to work the opposite way, as if, to quote a sardonic expression, no good deed goes unpunished, which comments on the frequency with which acts of kindness can backfire, or people can suffer just for trying to be helpful. It is as if there is a special and unsurmountable inertia which we are all having to work against, like a malevolent force that would prefer that you stay asleep or blind, as we put it in the last session. This is the nature of the gremlins or Mara, which we will examine in this session. The idea is that if we know what we are up against, then we will be better prepared to avoid discouragement, since such gremlins often seem to know exactly how to get us riled up and to push all our buttons. Of course, the gremlins have different origins and come variously from weaknesses in our human makeup, both in the body and the mind, the weaknesses in others, and the weaknesses in society at large. We have to protect ourselves against foundering in our career of spiritual transformation, and also from the way gremlins twist our understanding of goodness to get us to go over to the figurative dark side. So if there are any Star Wars fans listening in today, please be informed that these movies have a much deeper spiritual meaning beneath the surface. Gremlins manifest in 5 different types of obstacles. Weaknesses of mind, weaknesses of body, problems with our reputation or personal past, problems with those around us, and fear of death or lack of commitment. These are the 5 sorts of shadows that seem to upset the good things that we do in our lives. Like the little gremlin that sits on one shoulder when a little angel sits on the other shoulder, both trying to put thoughts into our head when we are making a decision. Sometimes we meet them on the battleground of the mind, sometimes in the battleground of life. So let's look at each of the categories of gremlins in turn, and I will say in advance that the PowerPoint pictures are just a bit of fun, with the real appearance of the so-called gremlins being a lot more terrifying. The first category of gremlins is the weaknesses that we have in our mind, otherwise known technically as kilesa mara. They are the defilements or unwholesome habits. Just as our body is weakened by illness, in the same way the mind is weakened by impurities, whereas we see them manifested, bad habits. In the same way as for bacteria or viruses, there are many different sorts of impurities in the mind. They may be disturbing images which pass through our mind to undermine our meditation. They can be the anxiety that prevents us from focusing on good deeds for long enough to achieve anything. These illnesses of mind can be broken down into 3 main categories which you're probably familiar with: greed, hatred, and delusion. But sometimes fear is thrown in there too for the sake of completeness. These things are hidden away in our minds right from the time we are born. Some babies are peaceful. Others bawl and cry so much that there's no one who wants to take care of them. These are babies suffering from the impurity of hatred since the time of birth. The babies that are greed-ridden from birth will just eat and eat and eat. Babies overcome with ignorance will just sleep the whole time, as if they have no awareness of what is going on around them, or else they're always being taken advantage of. We have defilements from birth, but if we're prudent, they will not increase with the passing years. The main way of overcoming these weaknesses of mind is to resist giving in to temptations through the application of extreme levels of patience in avoiding decision-making biased by greed, hatred, delusion, or fear. Through the application of principled decision-making, whether it be concerning consumer decisions, as we shall be seeing later today, or more generally for decisions, as we will see in the next session. The second category of gremlins is the weaknesses we have in our physical health, otherwise known technically as khandamara. These are the faults in the hardware of body and mind that get in the way of our pursuit of good deeds. Some people are physically disabled. Some people need to wear eyeglasses because their eyesight is not so good. Worse than this, some people are born lame. Worse than that, some babies are born as conjoined twins, and the first thing the doctor has to do is surgery to separate them. As we get older, we groan whether we sit down or stand up, because you have so many aches and pains. The older you get, the worse it is. When you're young, you look pretty and fit, but as you get older, then you get long in the tooth and wrinkles line your face. Your eyes get deeper in their sockets, your back becomes bent. When trying to sit and practice meditation instead of being able to concentrate, you find you have many aches and pains that prevent you from focusing. You may be too short-sighted to see the teaching monk properly, or else your memory may be like a sieve, meaning that you forget everything they're teaching you. These are all what we mean by khandamara. We can reduce our tendency to these by avoiding taking advantage of other people. Of all the things in the world that are dear to living beings, there is nothing dearer than one's own life, one's possessions, one's loved ones, or the need for trust. Also, we must be free of the roads to ruin or abhayamukha, which undermine our integrity, the economic system and the environment, which means that we cannot afford to come into contact with them even in moderation, namely drinking alcohol, taking intoxicating drugs, frequenting red light districts, being addicted to entertainment, gambling and lotteries, associating with bad company, or being too lazy to work. The third category of gremlins is problems with our reputation, or regrettable things, often euphemistically known as demons in our personal past, otherwise known technically as abhisankara mara, things we have done to damage our own credibility in the eyes of others. They inevitably catch up with us in the end. Supposing there was a gangster called John, but later he gave it all up and became an honest person again. In such a case, even though he's gone straight, there will still be no one who will trust him. When people ask about John, they ask, "Which John? We know hundreds of Johns. Do you mean John the gangster?" Another example is to suppose you had cheated on your wife. Even if you have long since given up your philandering, it will be especially hard for you to regain anyone's trust. These are the abhisankara mara, and you can't blame anyone but yourself, because you did it all to yourself in the past. According to Buddhist beliefs, even some things that we can't remember can catch up with us from the things we did in previous lives. To gradually overcome obstacles coming to us from a blemished reputation, it is particularly important that we establish ourselves in right livelihood. That is, you need to be especially careful about how you earn your living and make sure it's in a righteous way. Right livelihood will help you to think correctly, to have the right reason for doing things, because for most people, more than 1/3 of their lifetime is taken up with activities related to earning their living. Choosing certain ways of earning your living can be fraught with difficulties, both for yourself and for society. Some ways of earning a living make a profit out of the suffering of other people, which will only damage your reputation further. Thus, we try to avoid damaging ways of earning our living. If you don't get hired as an assassin, then you won't get the resulting troubles. This applies to avoiding selling liquor or making a career out of working in a slaughterhouse. Even if you're a monk, it doesn't mean you're immune to wrong livelihood. As a monk, you need to avoid giving lottery tips or telling fortunes for a living. If you can practice right livelihood, then you will not be a burden on society, and your mind will automatically be far more peaceful even without having done anything special. The fourth category of gremlins is that of others around us, technically known as Deva Bhuta Mara. These seem to be the gremlins personified into jinx-like people who seem to make a full-time job of ruining your efforts to do good deeds. When mosquitoes bite you as you meditate, that is the work of Deva Bhuta Mara. When dogs come and howl and fight next to your window, or when a drunk is shouting and singing next door, or the family next door is quarreling, or the teenagers are revving up their motorbikes with the muffler off, just when you want peace and quiet for your meditation, then that is the work of Deva Bhuta Mara. Or it may be that it's someone in your workplace who is a constant troublemaker, wanting to sneak away for a drink or to liberate office property, but who sees you as a goody-goody who stands in the way of their adventurous lifestyle. Such people will make life difficult for you until you cannot stand working there any longer. Sometimes they may be acquaintances from your past, from a time when you weren't so morally principled, who want to talk to you about the old days and drag you back into your old ways. Sometimes they are people who are jealous of the good things that you are doing. Sometimes they can be obstacles to us even though they're actually thinking they're helping us, like a Boy Scout helping an old lady across the street when she doesn't want to go. Even we can sometimes be a Deva Bhuta Mara to ourselves when we make a fool of ourselves. These sort of gremlins are the sort we know about from the life of the Buddha, that turned up in hordes and armies to try to dissuade him from attempting to reach enlightenment. It is said that if you meditate to the point where you attain the body of enlightenment, only then will you be able to see them for yourself. Anyway, to overcome the personified gremlins in your life, you need to develop social skills and integration, and the ability to be a good friend to others. You need to be endowed with techniques to instill purity, brightness, and peace in other people. Therefore, a virtuous person, apart from being a person who conforms to the standards already mentioned, is a person who clearly understands their duties and rights in relation to society, and is someone who both practices and teaches others thoroughly, thereby contributing to the development of society, since after all, society is always ripe for development. The fifth category of gremlins is the fear of death or death itself, or just a lack of commitment, otherwise known technically as Majjhumara. Death inevitably comes as a final obstacle to our performance of good deeds. It is waiting at every moment to carry us away, like the grim reaper stalking us from the day we were born. Most people see death as something that happens to them at the end of their life, not as something which has been creeping up on them since the day they were born. The signs of approaching death express themselves in two forms of aging: manifest aging and concealed aging. Manifest aging is clearly seen in the white hair, the missing teeth, the wrinkled skin, the dim eyes, the deaf ears, the shaking hands, and the difficulty in walking, standing up and sitting down. When you see a person with any of these characteristics, you know they are old and fast approaching death. Even though the indications of death are so clear, some people refuse to accept them. They dye their hair to hide the greyness. They get a hairpiece to hide the baldness. They wear makeup more thickly to hide the wrinkles. By the time they wake up to the brevity of life, they are already being carried feet first into a funeral parlor. In fact, all the signs of aging, like grey hair, can be used to our advantage, because it gives us advance warning to do all good deeds we can and give up on the bad habits as soon as we can before it's too late. Concealed aging, by contrast, is not so easily detected. Every second that passes after we're born, we get older and older. Every day that passes us by brings us one step closer to the funeral pyre. but we erroneously believe that it's maturity rather than deterioration. Thus, when a person's birthday comes around, instead of thinking soberly that they are 1 year closer to death and that they must do more good deeds, they throw a party and get drunk with their friends. No one amongst you has any idea who will be the first to go. Sometimes you see someone in the morning, by noon they have died. Sometimes you are only talking about them at noon, and by the afternoon they're gone. Sometimes you might even be eating a meal together, and your friend may choke on a fishbone and die. Usually we assume that the old people will die before the young, but sometimes people die young as well. Who would think that the parents would be the ones to organize a funeral for their children? Who would think that the grandparents would have to bury their own grandchildren? We are always on the brink of death at every moment. Majjhimara refers not only to death, but also to our fear of death. Sometimes when it's hot weather, you hear people say, "I'm not going out today, I'll boil to death." When it's cold, they say, "I'm not going out today, I'll freeze to death." And when they can't tolerate someone, they say, "I'm tired of so-and-so. I'm tired to death of so-and-so." Eventually, they are so averse to everything except eating and sleeping that they die of inactivity. Ways to overcome Majjhimara, or at least the fear of death, are to be more earnest in everything you do, and of course to practice a lot of meditation. Because in many ways, sitting very still with your eyes closed and when your breath becomes shallow is very much like rehearsal for dying. When we point the finger at others, we find that there is 4 fingers pointing back at ourselves. In the same way, 4 of the 5 gremlins mentioned come from ourselves, and only 1 comes from others. So starting with the development of ourselves is an efficient place to start in at least 80% of cases of obstacles to our spiritual transformation. Thus, taking responsibility is the first step towards facing up to the challenge of commitment. It means finding fault with ourselves before finding fault with other people. Sometimes gremlins are referred to as our teachers, because they are bearers of lessons which, if we can master them, we can move up to the next level in our spiritual transformation. It is said that to be able to know the working of Mara is to lose half the battle, and to know any less than this is to lose the whole battle. However, if we can identify them and put a name to them, we will not be so easily discouraged when we meet up with them in the course of our spiritual transformation. If you should come across gremlins on your spiritual journey, try to move from the attitude that no good deed goes unpunished to one of obstacles are there to be overcome. Especially if you are on the path of spiritual transformation, the fact that you have come across gremlins indicates that you are onto something worthwhile in your cultivation, and you should try to persevere, like a marathon runner who hits the wall but keeps on running regardless, and they'll soon be able to access a deeper reserve of energy that they never knew they had. In the Indian language from which the culture of meditation was originally derived, meditational gremlins were sometimes called upasaka, which literally means closer to heaven. So rather than being discouraged when you come across gremlins in your journey of spiritual transformation, try to see them as good news because they indicate your proximity to success. So now we come to the time for some meditation for ourselves. If you'd like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now as you listen to my instructions. We are going to sit now for meditation. If you'd like to find a comfortable position for yourself in meditation. Having done the chanting in homage to the Triple Gem, from this moment forth, all of us should do our best to realign our minds with the pathway to Nirvana. Sit in a cross-legged position with your right leg on your left leg, your right hand on your left hand, the index finger of your right hand touching against the thumb of your left hand, with your hands palm upwards on your lap. And close your eyes very gently. Close your eyes as if you were only half closing them. Almost as if you were closing your eyes in order to go to sleep. Never squeeze your eyes closed, and make sure there's no pressure around your eyes. Fill your mind with happiness and joy. And suppose that inside your body is empty of all organs and tissues. Just an empty space inside yourself. Imagine that inside your body is just a hollow cavity, without any organs or tissues, without any muscles or bones, similar to a hollow pipe inside yourself, a pipe made of glass, a pipe made of crystal. So imagine that inside yourself is just a hollow empty space, like a crystal tube or a diamond tube, clear and bright, transparent inside yourself. We have to anchor the mind that normally wanders around at the center of the body. There is nothing else we need to do. You can anchor your mind at the center of the body by visualizing a mental object there. Or you can just rest your mind at the center of the body without visualizing anything, cultivating mindfulness and self-possession at the center of the body by balancing our sense of relaxedness and alertness at the center of the body the whole of the time. And our job as meditators is simply to observe continuously, to observe without any thoughts in the mind. This is our job as a meditator, without having any questions in our mind. And what will happen once we're able to see a sphere at the center is that within the sphere we will see further spheres, and within the spheres we will start to be able to see bodies within the body, feelings within the feelings, minds within the mind, and mental phenomena inside the mental phenomena, according to all the foundations of mindfulness laid down for us in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta. So we observe continuously. What we find is that the different levels of the Dhamma are nested as spheres within, one inside the other. Each of the spheres of the Dhamma has its own name. The first one is called the Dhammanupassana Satipatthana sphere. After this, we find the sphere of self-discipline or sila, the sphere of concentration or samadhi, the sphere of wisdom or panya, the sphere of liberation or vimutti, and the sphere of seeing and knowing of liberation or vimuttiyanatasana, a set comprising a total of 6 spheres. And these 6 spheres are what link between one inner body and the next. Including our physical body, there are a total of 18 inner bodies. Each of the inner bodies is connected to the next by a set of these 6 spheres. Inside the human body, there is the astral body or subtle human body. Inside the astral body is the coarse angelic body. Inside the coarse angelic body is the subtle angelic body. Inside the subtle angelic body is the coarse form Brahma body. Inside the coarse form Brahma body is the subtle form Brahma body. Inside the subtle form Brahma body is the coarse formless Brahma body. Inside the coarse formless Brahma body is the subtle formless Brahma body. Inside the subtle formless Brahma body is the first of the bodies of enlightenment, known as the coarse Kotrapu Dhammakaya body. Inside the coarse Kotrapu Dhammakaya body is the subtle Kotrapu Dhammakaya body. Inside the subtle Kotrapu Dhammakaya body is the coarse Streamentra Dhammakaya body. Inside the coarse Streamentra Dhammakaya body is the subtle Streamentra Dhammakaya body. Inside the subtle Streamentra Dhammakaya body is the coarse once-returner Dhammakaya body. Inside the coarse once-returner Dhammakaya body is the subtle once-returner Dhammakaya body. Inside the subtle once-returner Dhammakaya body is the coarse, non-returner Dhammakaya body. Inside the coarse, non-returner Dhammakaya body is the subtle, non-returner Dhammakaya body. Inside the subtle, non-returner Dhammakaya body is the coarse, arahant Dhammakaya body. Inside the coarse, arahant Dhammakaya body is the subtle, arahant Dhammakaya body. All of these bodies are nested one inside the other and linked together by these sets of 6 inner spheres. This is like a blueprint for the structure of our lives, and it has been so since the very first time we were born as a human being. For each inner body, there are bodies, feelings, minds, and mental phenomena to be explored according to the foundations of mindfulness, as if we were going through the different layers of an onion, or as if we were going through different layers of a Russian doll. Going through the core of the core, seeing behind the scenes of everything inside ourselves, going straight to the center in sequence, until we can come to the bodies of enlightenment inside ourselves. Once we reach the bodies of enlightenment inside ourselves, the body of enlightenment will start to reflect upon the aggregates inside ourselves. It has to be the body of enlightenment which does this reflection. It will reflect that these aggregates are not of us, they are not our real self, that we have no real self in these 5 aggregates. If it's not the body of enlightenment which considers these, the reflection will not lead to anything significant. But with the eyes of the body of enlightenment, we will be able to see what is really permanent and what is impermanent, what is our true self and what is not our true self. Once our body of enlightenment sees the things for what they really are, we will be able to let go of all things which are not our true self, which are not able to be a refuge to us. By letting go, we will be liberated of all of these things, and the mind will become pure as a result. As the mind becomes more pure, then we will be able to go deeper inside. The mind will become more radiant, becoming more pure, and then we will be able to go deeper inside ourselves. The mind will become more radiant and will return to its true position inside. It will allow us to touch on true happiness, which will magnify and multiply as the time goes on, and we will be inspired to look for higher forms of knowledge and happiness as well. And at this point, the mindfulness and wisdom will reach beyond the conventional virtues to become great mindfulness and great wisdom. Once we have broken free of the imprisonment in the 5 aggregates, we will realize that anything that is still within the triple world, that is everything which is made up of the 5 aggregates, is restricted to the triple world. They are all things which cannot be one's true self, which are impermanent, which are of a nature of suffering. Once the Dhammakaya sees through these things for what they are, it will let go of all of these things and will allow us to enter upon deep meditation. Once we have broken free of these things, we will not become attached to them ever again, rather like a palm tree which has been struck dead by lightning, or a tree which has had its top bud nipped out, which will no longer grow anymore. It will be completely extinguished. But in fact, for our mind, it has become united with the body of enlightenment inside, just as it has become part of the flavor of that body of enlightenment, inseparable. On this pathway, there are 2 sectors, the mundane path or Lokiya Magga, and the transcendental path or Lokuttara Magga. On the mundane path, we traverse the formless Brahma bodies, the form Brahma bodies, the angelic bodies, and the human body. However, on the transcendental part of the path, we traverse the bodies of enlightenment at the levels of Kotrapu, stream entry, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. All of these are inner bodies inside ourselves. All those on the transcendental path have broken free of the three universal characteristics or samanya lakkhana. We have to make a thorough study of all these inner bodies, but most important of all is that we study about the bodies of enlightenment. They are identified by a lotus bud topknot, and are endowed with all 32 signs of the great man, or Mahapurisa Lakkhana. The bodies of enlightenment are crystal clear, more transparent than anything in the world. These are the most important inner bodies of all. The aim in all our lives is to attain the inner bodies of enlightenment, especially that of the Arahant Dhammakaya body, because it is the body that has broken free of all forms of mental defilements. It is the body of enlightenment of one who is fully awakened and joyous. It is the Buddha body, the body that allowed the Lord Buddha to become enlightened. The body exists inside the body of every human being in the world. It doesn't matter what sort of person we might be, but we all have the body of enlightenment inside. Although people from one country to the next might look different on the outside, distinguished by their own creed or race, but on the inside, once they reach the body of enlightenment, they all look the same. It is the highest attainment for all of us. It is an inner body that is no longer affected by the law of karma. Thus we should study as well as we can about this body of enlightenment, because it can be our true refuge. It is a holy body inside us, and it is something that can sanctify us as well. As Buddhists, we have to find out what is the heart of our religion, so that we can pass on a true explanation of Buddhism to other interested parties who seek our advice. Our aim in life is to attain nirvana and accumulate the maximum of merits and perfections for ourselves. Just as a fire will burn out as soon as it has no more fuel to feed the flames, once someone is enlightened, once they have no more defilements, there is nothing to lead them back into the cycle of rebirth anymore. We have to make the effort to attain nirvana, or at least to be able to see nirvana for ourselves. It is only by bringing the mind to a standstill that we see this inner body of enlightenment for ourselves. We must do everything in our power to attain this inner body of enlightenment inside ourselves, because the inner body of enlightenment has a way of seeing the world that goes beyond the mundane. The way it sees the world is to go through the eyes of insight. It penetrates into the reality of all things. It penetrates reality much more completely than any other inner body, whether it be the celestial bodies, the form Brahma bodies, or the formless Brahma bodies. It sees in all directions all around at the same time, 360 degrees at one glance. It can see into the future, and it can see into the past. It can see both the causes and the effects of every factor. There is no secret hidden from the eye of the Dhammakaya, whether issues about life or the world. The wisdom of the Lord Buddha was all-knowing and thorough, and that is why they call the Lord Buddha the Lokavidu, or seer of the world. This is what we really mean by the word insight. The syllable sight in the word insight indicates that insight meditation involves seeing, but it is no ordinary seeing. It is penetrative seeing of the world. If you can attain the Gotrapu Dhammakaya body of enlightenment, you can see things on a certain level. If you can attain the stream enterer Dhamma body, then you can see a little bit more. If you can attain the bodies of the once returner or the non-returner, you can see more still. But it is only when you can attain the body of enlightenment of the Arahant that you can see everything. This is the true meaning of the word vipassana. This is our real aim in the practice of meditation, so that we can attain this sort of vision for ourselves. And the way we can do that is by bringing our mind to a standstill. We have to strike a balance and poise for ourselves in meditation, a balance which will occur whenever our mind comes to a standstill. You will know at that time what is the optimum for your mind. This is why we say that the stopping of the mind is the secret of success. Every moment of every day, we are using up the merit which we have stored up from our past, and we need to replenish our merit to replace the merits from our past that we are burning up. But one way of replenishing the merit that we often forget about is the merit of practicing meditation until our mind can come to a standstill. The great abbot of Wat Bak Nam once taught that to meditate until the mind comes to a standstill, even for an instant of no longer than the flap of an elephant's ear or the flick of a snake's tongue, is a huge merit, more than the building of 10 temples or pavilions, because the merit of building temples, although improving the quality of your rebirth, still leads you back to be reborn in samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The whole of the time, we are using up the merits we have accumulated for ourselves from the past. This is why the accumulation of new merits is so important to us. If we understand this properly, we can steer our lives away from catastrophe and towards success. So, if we cultivate all sorts of merits in the meantime, we will help the mind to come to a standstill. We will be able to find out who we really are. In this connection, there is an account from the time of the Lord Buddha about a group of 30 princes known as the Patavakiya, who were amusing themselves by playing hide and seek in a forest glade between Benares and Uruvela. All of the princes except one had paired themselves off with a princess. The remaining prince had brought along a courtesan instead. As they were playing hide and seek, they had taken off their crown jewels and left them in the safekeeping of the courtesan. When the princes and princesses were busy looking for each other, the courtesan made off with the crown jewels she had been entrusted with, intending to quit her courtesan's trade and never to have to work again for the rest of her life. So she took the crown jewels and ran away from the forest. Now, instead of being a game, the hide and seek became a hunt for the courtesan, but no matter how hard they looked, they could never find her any more. However, while they were looking for her, they came across the Lord Buddha in the forest. They asked if he had seen a courtesan carrying jewels passing that way. Instead of answering them, the Buddha asked them a very profound question in return, namely, would you be better off looking for that woman or looking for yourself? Do you want to look for that woman, or would you be better off looking for yourself? Because the Lord Buddha knew very well that those princes hardly knew themselves at all. It was only the superficial self which they knew. And where is the benefit in that? He asked them again, would you be better off looking for that woman or looking for yourself? The princes had latent wisdom from their previous merits, and they admitted that they would be better off looking for themselves. Accordingly, the Buddha said, if you want to look for yourself, I will teach you the method. And the method he taught was just the same as you are being taught now, how to find your true self by sitting down to meditate. The Lord Buddha taught that the physical body is not our true self. It is only our superficial self. There's no point wasting our time with this, because it harbors only suffering from the time we are born to the time we pass away. If they thought they were reducing their suffering by playing hide and seek, they were surely mistaken, because such distractions are only a temporary escape from suffering. It just serves to take our mind off the suffering. It would be better that they look inside themselves at the center of the body, to bring the mind to a standstill, and in this way to release themselves from the aggregates on various different levels. As soon as their mind comes to a standstill, they would see their true self inside and would attain unbridled happiness for themselves, The princes listened to his advice and followed it. They were no longer reckless, and before long, as a result of the Buddha's teaching, all 30 of the Bhattavakkiya were able to attain their true selves inside, that is, the body of enlightenment of the Arahant, and they became ordained there and then. As for us, the principle is just the same. Our true self is our Dhammakaya inside, or our body of enlightenment. So today, in your meditation, may all of you succeed in attaining the body of enlightenment inside yourself. Now each to their own meditation for a few more moments in silence. We are going to Sabba Buddhanupavena, Sabba Dhammanupavena, Sabba Sankhanupavena Sattha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position before gradually finishing your practice. So let's continue by looking at how to harness consumer choices to facilitate our spiritual transformation, to know the appropriate amount of contact to have with things we consume or use. You may be surprised to know that the expression, "you are what you eat," can be traced back to the French lawyer and politician Antoine Briat-Savarin as early as the 19th century. Consumption is not just about what we eat, however, because everything we deal with brushes off on us. Just like Friedrich Nietzsche, in his book Beyond Good and Evil, warned us about getting mixed up with negative influences we cannot control, even if we think we are fighting it, with the words, "Whoever fight monsters should see to it that in the process they do not become a monster themselves. Because if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." You might wonder why, if being a consumer is so risky, why we have to consume anything at all. Unfortunately, as our teacher Lompa Tachiwa reminds us, our body is not self-sufficient. Because in our body, 18.75 million cells of the body die each minute. We need certain basics, whether it be food or medicine, to replenish the impure elements that build up our body. And we need clothing and shelter to protect our health. Given that consumption is necessary, the question for the person involved with spiritual transformation becomes how to navigate a way to consume in order that the associated habits that brush off on us are not going to be damaging. The main myth to be dispelled here is that moderation is always a virtue. Once we are already endowed with vision and have started to set out on the path of spiritual transformation, which helps us to deal with the challenge of commitment and integration of practice, as we have already said earlier, the first step towards commitment is the development of responsibility, especially towards living up to our vision. Earlier we talked about gremlins that seek to derail our good intentions by twisting them. Thus you can see that sometimes if we leave decision-making to our whims, we run the risk of our decision-making processes being taken over by the gremlin of weakness of mind, or kilesa mara, which will bias us in a harmful way a way that's harmful to our spiritual transformation. Thus, until we can start to recognize the working of gremlins, sometimes it's useful to have decision-making strategies to ensure that our decision-making is objective in every case. It is like having the knowledge of how to do basic math in our head to back us up for the time when our calculator app is unavailable. The burning question for the problem of decision-making we shall look at in particular today is the question of moderation, where the amount we do of something or consume of something can affect whether we get little benefit, much benefit, or much harm. I use the term consume loosely here to mean both things we actually use, but also the things we choose to come into contact with that somehow brush off on us in our positive or negative way. Maybe you can think back to the second session I did with the simile of washing the shirt, where we can either trash the shirt, leave it dirty, or get it perfectly clean. Indeed, moderation is an issue for which meditators need to be more streetwise than your average person. For example, meditators need to think about the amount of water to drink before meditating, so as not to get thirsty during meditation, but at the same time not to have to visit the restroom halfway through. The nature of many of these decisions is not a question of good or evil, so you wouldn't think of it as a moral issue. But it's important because of the benefit or harm implied for progress in one's meditation or spiritual transformation. So there are 4 categories we will look at, which relate to the question of the right application of moderation. There are wholly good things, where the more we do the better. There are neutral things, which are best in moderation. There are things that are harmful at certain times of vulnerability, and there are things that are always harmful. Let's start by looking at the category of things that are wholly good. If we want to go beyond 5 precepts, which you're already familiar with, I'm sure, to shift from simply neutral actions, that is, avoiding unwholesomeness, to more positive ones, then we have to make a further effort by cultivating what's known as 5 virtues to the maximum, namely compassion, generosity, contentment with one's spouse, truthfulness, and mindfulness. So we will look now at each of these virtues in turn to see how we can cultivate them to the maximum. The first of the virtues is compassion, which means at the very least controlling all the unpleasant things that come from the body in a way that will not be offensive to others, such as being properly turned out, courteous, and quick to express concern for others. Better than that, it would mean being the sort of person who goes out of your way to help others, rather than doing things to trigger others' suspicions. The second of the virtues is generosity, which means giving things, time, forgiveness, attention, teaching, and advice to others out of compassion. The third of the virtues is contentment with one's spouse. In the old days, people would be very careful to mend possessions of theirs that had been broken. If a chair was broken, they would find spare parts and mend them. Only in the worst case, where the object was beyond repair because of wear and tear, would they buy a new one. In the same way, it was traditional for partners in a marriage to stay together for the whole of their lives, or at least until their children had grown up. If the marriage fell on stormy times, they would see what they could do to mend the marriage. Nowadays, however, we live in a throwaway society. If anything breaks, it costs more to mend it than it does to buy a new one. Since the Western world has become obsessed with recycling trash, the same cavalier attitude has been carried over into marriage as well, and there seems to be more recycling of marriage partners than efforts to create and maintain a good marriage partnership. On the topic of ways to maintain a relationship, that's something that we will look at in more detail in a later session. The fourth of the virtues is truthfulness, which means being earnest and honest, not telling lies to others or to yourself, for that matter. It means putting your best effort into every task you do, especially towards doing good deeds. Training yourself to be a person of your word, true to yourself, and honest to others, allowing spiritual transformation to take root in your character. Again, we will look at this in a later session under the heading of perfectionism. The last of the virtues is mindfulness, which means training yourself to keep your mind at the center of the body the whole of the time, whether you have your eyes closed for meditation or open for other duties you perform during your life. Mindfulness means keeping up meditation as a regular habit to get to the roots of the problem that crop up in life. For good things, the more we do, the better. But even though we know this on an intellectual level, it doesn't guarantee that we will follow through in real life. The reasons we don't give full attention to cultivating wholesomeness are on 3 levels. Some people try to do good deeds, but they give in to themselves easily because they lack inspiration. If you find this is your case, for you need to stay close to those who are more motivated. We need people in our lives who are the equivalent of a stake guarding a sapling against wind damage. Also helpful for bolstering motivation is choosing a sort of work where you can avoid having to put yourself in negative situations every day of the year. If you find that the obstacle to doing the maximum of good deeds is your surroundings rather than your level of inspiration, don't give up, but do as much as you are able to do. For example, like a person who is stuck in a slaughterhouse job, but who tries to keep the precepts on their days off, or whenever they have the opportunity. When it comes to the right time, then the opportunity to break free of those limiting circumstances will present itself. If you have obstacles neither from your level of inspiration or from your surroundings, you should try to accumulate good deeds for as long as you can in your life, regularly, often, and continuously. So in conclusion, if you never do holy good things, they will bring you no benefit. If you do a small amount of holy good things, then they will bring you only small amounts of benefit. If you do holy good things in moderation, they will bring a moderate amount of benefit. But if you do the maximum amount of good deeds, then they will bring the maximum amount of benefit. So, having looked at good things, where the more we do the better, we turn to look at neutral things, which are more beneficial when done in moderation. There are many sorts of tasks in the world where we don't know the tipping point of moderation. And if we don't know where that tipping point lies, then we can ruin the whole result. For each person, the right amount has no objective tools to measure it, like scales or a ruler. The only way we can measure the correct point is to measure it with a mind that is refined, thorough and wise. So to calibrate your sense of moderation, you need to start with the easy things in life, such as the things that are your basic needs: clothing, food, shelter, and medicine. So let's look at some simple examples. If you're making food for dinner guests, you need to know how much food to prepare. Too much and it will be left over and wasted. Too little and it will look like you are not truly hospitable. Similarly, when eating, you shouldn't eat until you are completely full, but you should try to avoid ending up feeling bloated and sleepy by only continuing to eat until you realize that you are 4 or 5 mouthfuls away from a full stomach. Then stop eating and drink half a glass of water. How many sets of clothes to have to be sufficient to your needs without being excessive? You can tell the proper amount by choosing clothes which you can wear to a variety of occasions. For example, multitasking the clothes you might use for weddings, funerals, or maybe a job interview. What size of accommodation is moderate? Well, this would mean accommodation that's adequate for your needs without being excessive. If your house is too large, your mortgage will be so expensive that your grandchildren might still be paying it back after you're dead and gone. Too small a house, and you will have nowhere to put up any guests who visit you. As for using medicine to keep yourself healthy, you need to find a point of moderation in the same way. Some people will refuse ever to go to the doctor until when they finally do go to the doctor, their illness is already so serious that the doctor could do nothing to help them anymore. On the other hand, there are some hypochondriacs who go to the doctor even with minor complaints, and not just the local doctor either. They have to go and see a specialist outside the country. So if you can manage to get it right for the 4 basic needs in life, then you will need to build up the expertise by which you can apply moderation to more challenging things in your life, like money or finding the center of your body. So in conclusion, if you never do neutral things, they will bring you little benefit. If you do a small amount of neutral things, they will bring you little benefit. If you do neutral things in moderation, they will bring you the maximum of benefit. But if you overdo neutral deeds, then they will bring you diminishing returns. The third category I'd like to describe, where again moderation would be inappropriate, are cases where you come in contact with things that become harmful at certain times when you are particularly vulnerable. To give an everyday example of this, normally you would be able to handle a toilet bowl bleach cleaner without wearing rubber gloves. However, if you have a cut on your hand or even an infection around your fingernails, you'd be especially vulnerable and have to wear gloves when cleaning with that product to avoid poisoning yourself. In the same way, for spiritual transformation, we usually know our limits of tolerance. For example, when you're healthy, you can usually take angry people in your stride without letting their negativity get to you. However, if one day you are physically out of sorts or jet-lagged, you might not be up to dealing with angry people, because on that day you might be feeling weak and particularly vulnerable, and angry people would be the straw that breaks the camel's back, to push you over the edge into a day when you don't have the strength to fight off that negativity. Not until you're back on your feet again anyway. This category of consumer choices needs us to know our limits on any particular day for our vulnerable side, so we can proceed with particular caution. So for this category of harmless up to limits, if you never expose yourself to these things, they will bring you no harm. If you are only rarely exposed to these things, they will also bring you no harm. If you have moderate exposure to these things, they will bring you no harm up to the limit, but if you exceed the limits, then they will bring untold harm. Finally, we come to the category of things which are so negative that we are potentially vulnerable to them the whole of the time. They are bad enough for us to need to avoid them in all cases. Sometimes they can seem small or insignificant, but despite this, we still need to lend them special importance because of their potential to derail our efforts to transform spiritually. Just as psychologists give special importance to seemingly insignificant memories, historians give special importance to seemingly trivial historical events, or detectives give special importance to seemingly inconsequential clues, the meditator needs to give special importance to certain categories of influences, especially those that are the start of a slippery slope towards deterioration in our lives. This is why in the culture of spiritual transformation, we are encouraged to see the danger in small things. Not all small things, but those with the potential for much wider destruction. It is in the case of such things that we have to throw aside our usual ideas of moderation. For example, some people tend to say it's all right to drink liquor and take drugs as long as you don't get in a fight. However, as a meditator or someone involved in spiritual transformation, it becomes obvious that the main damage inflicted by intoxicants is on the person who consumes them and not on any fight victims. The argument would be the same if you were trying to train your kids to see the danger of playing with live electrical cables or running across a busy freeway, where you might normally be quite lenient in your punishment of your kids' rebelliousness. These are situations where you would definitely need to punish more harshly than usual to get your kids to remember that these are not things they can afford to experiment with. So for this category of harmful dealings, if you never expose yourself to these things, they will bring you no harm. If you have a small amount of exposure to these things, they will bring you a small amount of harm. If you have a moderate exposure to these things, they will bring you a moderate amount of harm. But if you have a lot of exposure to these things, they will bring you great harm indeed. Once you have an idea of these categories, you can have the wisdom to identify what category any object you consume belongs to. You need to educate your common sense and don't just assume that moderation is the answer to everything. If you can get it right, your consumer decisions will facilitate your spiritual transformation. So now we come to the part of the live stream where we try to answer some of the questions sent in by viewers. My question this session comes from Cleopatra of Arcadia in California. Here comes the question. What is the difference between meditation and prayer? I come from an upbringing in an Abrahamic religion where the words of the prayers are not translated, so I don't fully comprehend them. The translations I have seen are not detailed enough for me to resonate with. At the same time, I feel that in the times our world is currently experiencing, prayer could be an added bonus to the soul. In conclusion, I would like to know if there is an appropriate way for a non-religious or spiritual individual to pray. Well, thank you, Cleopatra, for another stimulating question. And here is my attempt to cover all the bases on your question. To answer this question properly, I need to tie down some definitions first. Some places talk about 7 entirely different sorts of prayer. Some talk about only 5. From the lists I've seen, maybe due to my unfamiliarity, when looking at their purposes, some of the categories seem to repeat themselves. But I would accept that there seem to be at least 3 categories of prayer that I can distinguish. The first category is prayer to do with blessing, adoration, worship, or praise. These include liturgies about how great God is and are ways to express our humility. The second category is prayer to do with petitioning for divine help with our own spiritual or worldly needs, or forgiveness of past misdemeanors, or asking for divine intercession on behalf of other people to help them with their spiritual or worldly needs. The third category is prayer to do with thanksgiving, which could include grace before meals or counting our blessings under the general heading of gratitude. As for meditation, this also seems to exist in Abrahamic religions as well as in Eastern traditions, but there seems to be wordless meditations known in Latin as contemplatio or contemplative techniques, and meditation on words or passages known in Latin as meditatio or meditation proper. In Eastern tradition, mostly the meditations are wordless contemplations, but there are exceptions to this, such as the repetition of a mantra or chanting of scriptural passages, which are sometimes referred to as sound meditations. Even without looking at the meaning of the words, you already have some parallels between Eastern and Western ways of meditation, where words are used. If you start to look at the words, I think you can find Eastern equivalents to what the West would call prayer in the various sorts of chanting, at least in the categories of worship, which in Eastern terminology is called puja or puja, and for the petition or intercession prayer, which the Eastern terminology would call adhitthana, which literally means resolution or determination. In both cases, you have some acknowledgement of a power higher than yourself, which is either deserving of your worship or powerful enough to fulfill the things that you are petitioning for. Some people joke that Buddhists add in an extra O to the word God to make it good, because the higher power Buddhists put their hopes in is not a supernatural being, but the power of goodness that a person can accumulate by their choices, words, and deeds. Therefore, when Buddhists worship the Buddha, the chanting is mostly a recollection of the many facets of goodness exemplified by the Buddha, and by repeating those words, a person becomes humbled and inspired to cultivate themselves towards the same pinnacle of goodness. As for their resolution, the Buddhists call upon the goodness they have cultivated in the past to be channeled into things to improve their own or others' lives. I'm not sure that gratitude prayers are relevant to Buddhism, because Buddhists are trained to return the favor to the person who helps them, not to pray to some deity for the intervention. Thus, in the situation that was the origin of the Thanksgiving festival, Buddhists would have gratitude to the Native Americans rather than to an unseen deity for the gift of the turkey. As you are a meditator asking about compatible ways to think of prayer in your tradition, I would encourage you to take a page out of the book of modern theology that thinks in a more abstract way about the nature of God, that is, the object of the prayer. For example, some Christians I know talk of their experience of God being something that surrounds them with a sense of love during their moments of quiet. Others, such as the 19th century poet John Rollin Ridge, talked about God as being the still small voice from within. In the process theology tradition of the Claremont School of Theology, where I am currently based, they talk about God arising in the space between people whenever there is an act of compassion between them. I like this latter concept because it means that the idea of God can be shared by anyone of any religion, or even by people doing good who have no religion. Thus, I would say that when praying, try to see prayer as a way to connect more easily with the states of mind that you're familiar with from meditation, and to try to understand the God on the receiving end of your prayer less as an old bearded man sitting on a cloud, and more as an all-encompassing goodness, an uplifting energy that extends towards all beings, but which may be manifest to only a few. Let me finish up with a couple of news updates, one about merit making at the temple and a second about the availability of meditation teaching in English. At the moment, as you probably know, despite certain relaxation in the social distancing regulations in California, the activities in the temple are still pretty much limited to those we can share online, as the temple buildings remain closed to the public, with no monks going outside the temple gates and no community members coming into the temple building until the risk of COVID contagion has passed. This last few weeks has been a little better than before, but we are still being cautious due to the recent social unrest. The good news is that we are continuing to receive so-called curbside or drive-through donations of food and requisites, usually between 10 and 10:30 a.m. every day. Anyone wanting to make a contribution to the temple, as long as you wear a face mask and keep your distance, can make an appointment with the temple staff, and a monk will come down to the temple gate dressed in PPE to receive the donation and give a blessing. In the meantime, although all of us hope the present situation will not last too long, the silver lining of the crisis is that there are additional ways in which the temple devotees can show their support for the temple without attending in person. The temple is now in its third month of reliance on weekly merit funds for its income, whereby devotees can pledge and transfer donations of money, any amount you can spare, to be used for necessary things like food, medicine, and utilities to keep the temple community going, with further details to be found on the temple's DIMC family line group, or you can ask about it by phoning up members of the temple staff. Basically, the convenient ways are mailing checks to the temple address or by making a bank transfer. Online transfers can be made by Venmo or Zelle. The special merits arising from those contributing to the COVID Silver Lining Fund are that you will have a life free of obstacles and danger, you will gain mastery of all forms of knowledge, prosper in your duties, have special insight into Dharma teachings, attain purity with ease, breaking free of the defilements in the mind, you will gain wealth on worldly, spiritual, and transcendental levels, allowing you to pursue perfections with ease, all the way to the attainment of the utmost Dharma. The whole temple would like to rejoice in your merits on this occasion. Meditation is particularly valuable in this COVID era to help us cope with the dysphoria of the new normal. In this respect, here at the temple, although there are no face-to-face teaching sessions for the interim, you can log in to the Dharma teachings in English at the YouTube channel called Peace Point Meditation, or the Facebook page of the Peace Point Meditation, either live or on Thursday evenings and Sunday mornings, or on demand after the event. Peace breaks are broadcast every evening between 7 and 7:30, between Friday and Wednesday. Outside of the live streams and on-demand programming, there is also the MindGem app, which you can download for free, allowing you to listen to meditation and Dharma talks in English on your cell phone. So this session we have looked at the topic of moderation and the 5 gremlins. For my next session online with you, which will, fingers crossed, be a week on Sunday morning or a week on Thursday evening, we will be looking a little more at decision-making strategies and how to get along better with others. For good measure, I would like to remind viewers again, even better than posting thank you or great talk or satu, which are encouraging, you can move to the next level and try posting a few questions, and I will do my best to answer these on my next session. In the meantime, try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness or complacency in the face of the virus, maintain a positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Try to overcome your gremlins and leverage your consumer decisions for your own journey of spiritual transformation. So today for myself, this is me, Pratt Nicholas, signing off for today. So long and stay safe.